Hey, good morning, everybody. Guy Junker with you here. Mike Logan, former Steeler, former Jacksonville Jaguar with us. And, Mike, we get to this point in the training camp now. When the cuts are made after Thursday night's game, those are the guys I feel badly for. The ones that were made yesterday, they kind of probably knew they were borderline anyway. I don't think there were any major surprises. But what's the mood like? Does the mood shift when you get into that final week and jobs really are on the line? And usually every year at the final cut, there's a veteran or two that maybe you thought was going to be with you that's gone, and there's a rookie or two that maybe was worried he wasn't going to make it that makes it. But does the atmosphere change at all?
It does change a little bit. It's really tense. Especially for guys who are veterans who may be on that bubble, be on the cusp of making the team, and you have a young guy who's out there gunning for your position. And right now is the time where he wants to make critical plays, and the veteran guy actually almost turns into the inexperienced guy because he doesn't want to mess up now. He knows that if he goes out and doesn't perform at the level that they're used to seeing him play, he's going to be the one that's gone. So the atmosphere does change a little bit. Those guys get a little bit tense. You still have a welcoming atmosphere for the team because ultimately it's to get the best 53 guys to make your team better. But it's a very, very tense time.
Well, the veterans are going to play very little, some maybe not at all, against Carolina Thursday night. How much of the decision do you think is already made? Can guys still make the team with a good performance against Carolina, or do you already have to be kind of on that fence for this Thursday's game to matter?
Well, there is, a select group. I'll say the number is about 50 spots who are taken care of right now. They don't have to worry about anything. But there are a couple spaces left on that roster where there are some question marks. And those guys will be the guys who play on the special teams, guys who may be able to come in because of a certain injury. You had some injuries happen with the Pittsburgh Steelers over the past couple of weeks. So there are a couple positions out there. So the competition will still be tense and fierce for those guys remaining on the roster. But the Pittsburgh Steelers staff, the scouts, all those guys have an idea of who's already made this football team.
Well, the Denver game isn't that far off. We'll be talking about it next week. But I'm a little negative on the training camp to this point, Mike, just because of the injury situation. James Harrison hasn't practiced yet. Casey Hampton hasn't been able hardly to do anything. Richard Mendenhall hasn't really been able to do anything. You lose your number one draft pick for positive news now. It looks like only for half the year, not the whole year. But I don't think it's been the great, and your number one receiver hasn't reported. I think there's been more negatives than positives. I hate to be doom and gloom, but I think there's a lot of concerns here.
There's a lot of concerns. If you think about all the things that has happened during this offseason, and we'll start with some of the guys retiring that we've been accustomed to being a staple in this organization. Hines Ward, Aaron Smith, Chris Hoke. Those are guys that when adversity happens in the offseason, they can kind of bring the team together in that locker room and keep it at a calm. Those guys are gone right now. James Ferrier, who was the man in the middle on that defense, he's gone. All of that experience is gone. So when all of this adversity is going on during the offseason, who's in that locker room to kind of calm it down? And it helps when there's a lot of guys who've done that, but a lot of guys have left. So right now, everyone's kind of looking in disarray. You go into training camp with all of these things going on, all of the injuries that happen. Your number one receiver hasn't even been here yet. Those guys are thinking about Mike Wallace. They're thinking about the injuries to Casey Hampton. How do you get that and focus in and have a good training camp? To me, this hasn't been a good training camp. There's still so many questions going into this season. You got questions with your running game, your offensive line. I mean, there's just a plethora of things going on with this football team. And training camp is the time where you usually fix all those things. You alleviate some of those pains that you had during the offseason, and there's still a lot of questions.
Well, let's talk about the running back position a little bit. Mendenhall's not going to be ready at the start of the year anyway. Who do you like? I mean, is Redmond the obvious guy? I mean, do you like Jonathan Dwyer? I mean, could either of these guys carry them for a week to a month if they have to?
That's where my biggest question is. You look at Isaac Redmond. I mean, he has fewer than 175 carries, I think, during his career. Can he really shoulder the load? Is Jonathan Dwyer, has he proven himself to even be a professional yet? We don't know that. Byron Batch was injured. He's come in and looked okay at times, but what are you going to do? I think a lot of this is going to fall on Todd Haley now, the offensive coordinator coming in.
If you're Todd Haley, who are you starting and featuring in the first game to try out of that group to begin with?
I think the obvious choice is Redmond. I mean, he's a big guy who can shoulder the load. How many carries can he handle a game? Is he conditioned well enough to be able to be the feature back? But he's also going to use Rainey. He's going to use Chris Rainey in there because he's kind of fallen in love with this guy right here with some of the things that he's able to do. And you love him because of his athletic ability, but he's not a feature guy. You can't line him up in the backfield and give him the ball 25 times. He won't make it. His body isn't built for that. So I think Isaac Redman is the obvious choice that you go into the season with, but can he handle it over the long haul? And then there's even question marks for when Rashard Mendenhall comes back. How is he going to run? Is he going to be timid after he comes back from that ACL injury? Not to be overly critical about him, but when he had the shoulder injury after Ray Lewis popped him in that rookie season, he came back and he wasn't the same. So to have a major knee injury, how do you react from that? And there's no question that he's been training hard. He's a workhorse. He's a guy that goes into the training room, does his physical therapy. He'll be coming back in shape and condition for that. But can he handle the load? Will it change up his running style as a running back to fit into this offense?
If Bruce Arians were still the offensive coordinator,
Ben's buddy,
I wouldn't worry about Mike Wallace having missed his time. I think as long as he's kept himself in shape, I think he could walk right in here. How much with a new offense will he be behind? Let's say he's, reports as we expect and is ready for the Denver game.
I think he's going to be way behind. I think, coming in, you want to get used to – I mean, your quarterback is the guy who runs the ship. He had a great rapport with Bruce Arians and was able to incorporate some of those things in there. Now, I don't know what the relationship is with him and Todd Haley, how much influence and input Ben Roethlisberger can have on that playbook. Mike Wallace needs to be there, not only just for learning the offense, but getting the timing down. Some of the routes that in the route tree that they run, they may be different. Todd Haley may want them guys to break a little bit earlier, to do that comeback a little bit later. Those are things that can't be worked on, even if Mike Wallace hired a super trainer and he's working in the offseason. He can be working with a quarterback. It's not Ben Roethlisberger. It's not the guys on this football team that he's been able to work with. And it just seems like there's been, he's standing his ground. He's adamant about what he wants and what he feels his value is. And there's a little bit of a question mark within the organization because of the big contract that they gave to Antonio Brown. So I think not only will he come back and be a little flustered by the situation of his contract and not getting those money, but what do this team and this organization value him at? Now, everybody's saying the right things. Mike is our guy. He's he's a part of this team. He's a significant part of this offense. But when you give Antonio Brown that much money, and Antonio has stepped up to the plate, I mean, he's validating with the contract that they gave him. So when Mike comes back, not only does he have to deal with learning a new offense, dealing with the offensive coordinator, he also has the aura around him of, okay, I didn't get my big contract that I wanted. I held out and missed all of this time, and how will I be received by my teammates and the football team, and more importantly, the fans? If he comes back and he doesn't step up to the plate, fans are going to ridicule him for saying, you missed so much time in preparing to get ready for this football season.
He got a lot of Jag off of the week votes on this here very show.
And I'm in the barbershop every day, and this is the top topic.
Sure.
They want him here. They say, come back and prove yourself. And I understand from a player's perspective, when you're hot and you feel like you can earn that money, you want to go out there and ask for the big bucks. The type of numbers that he asked for, I've never been in a position to ask for what he's asked for, but I don't think I think he overvalued himself a little bit, got to humble himself. Feelings are probably hurt just a little bit, so it's going to be hard for him to walk back into that locker room with his head held high and go out there and produce.